Okay, now moving on to our second game that we're going to preview, LSU at Kentucky. I took LSU to win that game at home last week against Auburn. I thought LSU would surely get their running game going a little bit against Auburn, TK, but you and I have said that the inability to run the football for LSU is very, very troubling, and it's going to cost them a lot throughout this year. TK, they had 33 rushing yards against Auburn this past week. 33 rushing yards in an SEC game. Really quite pathetic. I mean, Vanderbilt, I think, had more rushing yards on Georgia than that. I don't know. It's pretty close, but it was it's rough. And coming into this from TK, you got Kentucky, a 3.5-point favorite, over under 52.5 in Lexington. What are your thoughts on this game that kicks off at 7:30 Eastern on Saturday night?
Well, they're struggling running the ball, and I don't think it gets any easier coming into Lexington, Kentucky, dude. You're struggling running that thing on defenses that struggle, and then you're coming to see a Mark Stoops defense that gets after it, play after play, and brings the funk. And to your point, dude, you gotta. We talk about it all the time, but you gotta be able to run the ball. But even bigger than that, they're putting so much pressure on Max Johnson, dude, to make every play possible when you're not running the ball. So I could see as an LSU fan how that could be frustrating, man. You got to be able to tote it. So again, I don't.
Frustration's starting to boil over everywhere, TK, because you saw Ed Orgeron after the game kind of almost calling out his offensive coordinator for not being a little bit more dedicated to run the ball and things like that. But I mean, there seems to be dysfunction a lot in that program, and you can tell the seat's getting hot and the pressure's building. And what's the saying? Pressure either makes diamonds or burst pipes. So
pressure bust pipes.
So we'll see. It seems like those pipes are about to burst at LSU. But in terms of this game, TK, I think what you're going to see is, I think you're going to see that Kentucky defense really heat up Max Johnson. They're going to come after that LSU offensive line and force, I think, Max Johnson to get rid of the ball early. So we're going to have to see if the Kentucky secondary can, plaster to those receivers early on, play tight. And if here's the thing with LSU, if they turn the ball over even once or twice, because you saw Kentucky dominated. Florida dominated Kentucky in every statistical category in that game, TK. They outgained them 382 yards to 224. They had 211 passing yards to Kentucky's only 87, 171 rushing yards to Kentucky's 137. And Kentucky was only 1 of 9 on third down efficiency. So you might ask, how do they win the ball game? Well, they held them out of the end zone. They forced them to go for field goals and things like that, and then they blocked a field goal and ran it back for a touchdown. So a special teams touchdown and then a big goal line stand there at the end. Defensive efficiency in the red zone is big for Kentucky, and they're winning games, honestly, TK. This Kentucky team looks very similar to how Georgia was winning games a couple years ago. The offense was just really struggling, but that defense was standing up time after time, even with turnovers and sudden change. You realize Kentucky now in the last 2 weeks has held teams out of the end zone on 4 different sudden change possessions. So their defense is backed up in their own territory after a turnover, TK, and they don't give up points out of it. I mean, that's a remarkable stat.
No, it's huge. That is extremely impressive. But on the other side of that, the offense, Will Levis and this group has got to get going. They've got to get going. I mean, we talked about it last week, and one of our key notes was a guy named Wan'Dale Robinson. And when you get him the ball, Will Jitterbug gets going, bro. So they got to find a way to obviously get him more touches. If
he scored He scored on a screen pass, goes in Kentucky. He gets 3 touches the rest of the entire game. And that was early on, I think, first or second possession for Kentucky. So, TK, yeah, they definitely got to get Wan'Dale involved more.
100%, bro. If you got a guy that can hit home at any point in time, he needs to touch the rock. So, because early on, again, we talked about it. Their offense was rolling. So, they can get back to that.
If LSU had any kind of running game and was able to sustain drives in a certain way, I would think that they may even be, favored in this game because Kentucky's offense has just really struggled. I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's really, really struggled. There's a lot of pressure on that defense. As good as that defense is, if they let's say they have a blown coverage or they have a couple plays where they're out of position and LSU gets some quick scores, it's not going to be easy sledding for Kentucky to come back because they're not that kind of team right now. They have to run the ball and be methodical to get down the field. And honestly, they relied on their special teams to score in that game. But, LSU gave up 163 yards rushing to Auburn. I think LSU is going to give up more rushing yards than that to Kentucky with Will Levis running the ball, with Chris Rodriguez running the ball. I think they're just absolutely – because their tackling, like you said, is horrendous over there.
They better give him more touches, Brad.
Yeah. So overall, I think you've got a team that is reeling in LSU. You got a team that knows their identity at Kentucky. They just have to have a little bit more execution on the offensive side of the ball. Maybe use some max protection stuff, TK, and get Wan'Dale Robinson and Josh Ali on some deep crosses and over routes, some play action, things like that. But if they're able to do that, 3.5-point favorite. I like Kentucky to win and to cover. I don't like the over. I think it's going to be a low-scoring ball game because Kentucky is going to just absolutely stifle that LSU defense. So I'm going to say Kentucky wins this one 27-17. I'm going to take Kentucky over LSU at night game in Lexington. What's your prediction on this one?
Yeah, night game in Lexington. I don't like the over. I think it's going to be low scoring myself. I think Max Johnson and company have a tough go at it if they can't do it on the ground. So I'm going to take Kentucky 24-14.
24-14. We both like Kentucky by 10 in this game. So, I think the Wildcats are playing a good brand of football. Like I said, when it comes to Kentucky, man, Jacquez Jones, DeAndre Square, J.J. Weaver, he's got 4 sacks on the year, 6.5 tackles for a loss. Joshua Paschal is a freak up front. They got Devonta Robinson filling in up there. So I think it's really just going to be, can that secondary cover just long enough for guys like J.J. Weaver and stuff to get home against Max Johnson? Because I just don't think LSU is going to be able to run the ball any at all. Like, I'd be surprised if they have more than 50 rushing yards total in this game.